Hey everybody, welcome to From the Constituency. I'm Brian Calfano, joined again by Washington, D.C. political consultant. That's what we call you.
I don't consult, but
you consult.
Sure, we'll
you consult. Yeah. And his name is Charles Dahan. And Charlie, as I call you, Mr. Charles, listen, I was reading the Wall Street Journal the other day. It's actually last Tuesday was this editorial. Well, it appeared on the opinion page. You can't see it, but I'm holding it up here as a little prop. And it was a write-up of Tyler Cowen. I never pronounced this guy's name right. Anyway.
Economist, well-known economist.
Well, I don't know him. He has a new book called Big Business, and he makes the case that with all of the rhetoric going on the Democratic side of the nomination process for the 2020 election, socialism has sort of become the buzzword, trying to redefine it or define it in a particular way. And in the process, the general argument goes, the big bad companies, the big corporations in this country have missed an opportunity to sort of put their best foot forward. And here's a little bit of what the write-up from the Wall Street Journal on April 9th says about this. Quote, "It sounds almost sophomoric to say it, but big business has its virtues. It makes most of what we consume, and it gives most of us our jobs." End quote. This is the best job situation or set of circumstances we've had apparently since the late 1960s in terms of unemployment. How much does the big business sector get to claim credit for this?
Well, certainly, the large corporations in the United States are the engine and have been the engine for a long time of the American economy. It's been we've had many incredible success stories from IBM and GE to Walmart and now Amazon.
What about Mac, Apple?
Sure, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Apple is another. Lots of companies that produce the things that we purchase and provide lots of people with jobs.
Although not all here.
I think that
right?
I think that Dr. Cowen may be setting up a false dichotomy, right? He may be setting up that anyone is arguing that we should get rid of big companies or we should become a socialist society. I don't think anyone is necessarily
Wait a second. Isn't that the whole point of the Democratic nomination process, is to see how far to the left we can go?
Well, I haven't heard anyone discussing shutting down any of these big companies. Certainly Elizabeth Warren has talked about breaking up some of the biggest companies in America.
They don't want to tax them into oblivion?
And I think that might be more the case than saying we're going to have a government control of the economy, right? There's certainly where the debate is over what taxes should people be paying and who should be paying those taxes, and what should we be using the money for, right? And increasing in taxes, an increase in taxes doesn't necessarily make us a socialist country, I would say, but it definitely changes things as you have greater taxes paid by different groups in the economy.
Well, all right. So do corporations get a bad rap?
I certainly think, and I certainly have heard that big business is definitely going to be a target, I think, in the 2020 campaign. You look at folks like, again, Elizabeth Warren, who are talking about breaking up some of these large companies, in particular the large tech companies. But those tech companies have, I think, violated a lot of laws and norms. You look at many of the privacy concerns of a company like Facebook, of price manipulation of a company like Amazon, and you end up you end up with targets that may or may not be really serving the best interests of many Americans.
Well, there's a lot of knee-jerk reaction against the idea of government coming in and trying to break up companies. And we had the anti-monopoly movement at the turn of the 20th century, right? So antitrust legislation, Teddy Roosevelt, and all that sort of thing.
Yep.
But nowadays, it seems as though there's just either you're for big business or you're against it. That's sort of how it's pushed. And big business is different, though, from sort of small businesses, Main Street kind of thing, right? But the whole notion that these companies, these corporations, actually provide virtue of some sort is interesting. I think that's sort of what Cowen's talking about, or Cohen, or whatever his name is. Yeah?
It's very weird. I think it's a very weird argument that a company, particularly a public company, is in any way moral or immoral, right? It has one major, and really since the 1980s, one major obligation, and that's to make a high return for its owners, who are those who purchase stock in the company, and obviously needs to obey the laws of the country. But other than that, morality, I haven't heard many economists really, except for Cowan, talk about the morality of these big companies, right? I'm certainly very thankful for the large companies that I've worked at, and that they've paid my bills, and the checks seem to clear at bigger companies versus if you've ever been an independent contractor for smaller companies, that might be a little dicier. But I have a hard time with this in that saying something is moral or immoral when its obligation and its primary purpose is nothing to do with morality seems a little strange. But I will say you have to look at companies on a case-by-case basis. It's not a satisfying answer, particularly for a quick TV segment, right? To say things are complicated. Thank goodness
this is a podcast. No, I'm just
a
kidding.
Podcast or our podcast. I'm sorry. The morality of these things doesn't really seem to come into play. And you look at individual companies and what they can provide their workers and how they may produce their products, right? And we may like many of those products, but we may not like how they're made, or we may not like some of the externalities that go into their development.
I'm sorry, that was a big word. What was that? Externality? What's that?
That just means all of the things when you get an iPhone, let's say, right?
Okay, I got one right here.
Well, look at you.
And
very fancy.
I got a lot of messages I've been ignoring. But anyway, I've got an iPhone right here.
Well, Dr. Calfano, that's because you're a popular guy.
Yeah. Okay. So what were you saying about what is it? The external what?
Yeah, so all the different processes that go into making that phone, we may like the phone, we may like that it provides a lot of money.
It says designed by Apple in California, which I think is that a foreign country?
I'm from there, and so hopefully I can still travel around.
I've seen your passport. Okay, designed by Apple in California, but I'm reading right on the back of this, assembled in China.
Well, I wouldn't say it like that, but yeah, it's
China.
I think if you've read anything in the news about how they're produced, the externalities would be maybe some of the big human rights concerns about how those devices are made, environmental concerns about how they're disposed of, and those are things that we have to take into account when we look at a big company. Right, and how it operates. All
right. So, what's your bottom line gut feeling on this big business book and the argument?
I'm sure Dr. Cowan, and particularly for an economist, he's going to sell a lot of books, right? And a lot of people are going to read an article.
For some reason, everybody loves these economists, like they have any clue. They're always wrong, by the way, every month, and they never hit the estimate on what the job number is going to be. Right? They're always wrong. Even meteorologists, I love meteorologists. Even the meteorologists are right like half the time. The economists are always wrong, but we always go running back to them to see what's going to happen. Tell us now. I don't understand that. I digress.
Who would you go with then?
I would go with just ignore it all. Just forget it. Whatever happens, happens. Forget these estimates. But at any rate, what is your bottom line on that book? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought.
I think. I think setting up these arguments that may not be really based in fact or an argument that necessarily anybody is having can be really problematic, right? I mean, mischaracterizing what the left is saying or what the right is saying sets them up to be these boogeymen that may not really serve any debate, and particularly for a well-educated, very well-respected, and accomplished economist. To say that anybody is setting up this debate of socialism versus capitalism, or we should get rid of all big business, is both I think inaccurate and a little silly.
All right, gotta watch those boogeymen. Charles Dahan, what are we calling you now? Resident guy in D.C.
I'm an American.
No, an American.
Brian, I'm an American.
An American from California. It's a little wishy-washy.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.